here. There we go. So I wanted to just, hi, I see some of you joining in. So good. I wanted to let you know, anyone who wanted to tune in today, about the program that I lead every year called Yoga and the Healing Sciences. But really, I wanted to get into something that some people have been asking me that I don't talk about a lot, but it is the framework for why I got deeper and deeper and deeper into yoga and into the healing sciences. So I wanted to put it out there, and in hopes that it gives some light to why I've been so dedicated to these things for so long at this point. And I was reflecting the other day and realized that yoga came into my life when I was 12 years old in a very big way. So I count that as the time when I really started a path of diving deeper into yoga. So at this point, yoga has been a big part of my life for 34 years, which is kind of shocking. And not just a part of my life, but really a way of having a lens for life. A lens, if you were to shift a camera lens in different ways, of course, we do that in many ways in our lives. But, you know, when we take on a philosophy or we take on practices that are powerful and that have a great effect on how we perceive the world, it really affects everything, every part of our lives. So, so for me, at age 12, I started learning that there were breathwork practices and that there was awareness of energy and different layers of the body that could be tapped into beyond just the physical. And once that became a reality for me, it changed my whole perspective of the world greatly. I was already really open to the idea of fairies or various realms of beings and plant beings, different aspects of consciousness that exist in nature have definitely been a big part of my life, because I was born at a place called Findhorn. And for anybody who knows what that is, it's a place where really magical things happened, with very big vegetables coming out of places that were thought to be barren. And part of how the people of that land got attuned and created with nature was to become in communion through practices, through meditations, through prayer in that case as well. A dear friend on the path and a teacher for me at times has been Lauren Roche, and he's a wonderful meditation teacher. And one of the things he says that I love often is that that meditation is, let me say this, that prayer is asking for something, and meditation is opening to receiving that something. And so I would say that both ways of connecting were very prevalent in my life early on. And then my parents decided to get interested in understanding what Tantra is in different ways. And those practices include a lot of energetic practices and breath work and awareness practices. So that became a big part of my life from 12 on too. So from there, practicing yoga, Iyengar yoga got very profound for me and became a big part of my life in my teens. And I stayed with the basics for a very long time when it came to asana and structural forms of yoga, always feeling like maybe I didn't know how to do it correctly. And that's something that, because it was so big for me, of feeling like, am I getting this right? And looking outside for the answers with that. This program of yoga and the healing sciences that got developed with numerous forms of yoga, because as I went deeper and deeper into practices and traditions, I realized that even in a tradition where they'll say, do it this way and this is right, over time, things would change and get altered, and that teacher would have a different lens of perspective. And then how you would do triangle pose might change. You know, the subtle awareness of a particular arm angle changes based on the energetic principles or the explorations of anatomy and physiology that led to more awareness and crossover of thinking. So as I got into deeper and other traditions over time, I realized that there is not one way, there are many ways, and that the most important thing is to support myself and others that I work with in finding the way that is their way, that is their yoga. And this is something that many teachers that spent time with Krishnamacharya talk about, and Krishnamacharya being often considered one of the grandfathers of yoga in the West, since he taught Iyengar and Pattabhi Jois, and many amazing teachers came through that lineage. So as we go deeper into yoga, I want to just say, anybody that's interested in learning more, take it please from the perspective that there is not one way. And even if you stay with one tradition, look for the subtleties that speak to you, that resonate, that open you up in ways that feel a very clear sense of your nervous system opening, softening, relaxing in ways that allow you to have greater awareness of subtle vibration, where there's holding, where there's a sense of relief, where there's less strain, and learn from that, because from that can come great understanding, great awareness. So in the program that's coming up in the fall, that I've now led for as one of the directors for 12 years, it is an opportunity to dive deep with many teachers who've been on the path of yoga and have come into a particular perspective and way of working with it. Most of these teachers tend to hold the belief, I've noticed, and I've chosen on purpose, that they have the belief of that it's about finding your yoga and about figuring out through practices what that is for you. So there will be a faculty of over 25 people that have dedicated their lives to a particular aspect of yoga. In some cases with Dr. Urmila Patil, she's a doctor of Sanskrit and sacred sound. When we work with Guru Singh, he has dedicated his life primarily to the teachings of Kundalini Yoga, though he also has a background in coming from Yogananda background lineage too. So the Kriyas and the practices come from a lifetime of long dedicated study when you work with these people. And that is part of the key, is getting as much knowledge as you can from people who have dedicated their lives, but also that these teachers are teachers that recognize that it's about sharing what has helped them and assisting people in finding what is their yoga. So this fall starts August 21st and it'll run through December. And we're going to be on a journey, everybody that joins into it, for how to dive into each of the lineage that's represented, into certain aspects of those lineages, and ask questions and share and just try it on somatically in your body and see what it brings up. And at the end, have a greater sense of the types of yoga, the styles of yoga that are best suited for that individual. And then see how that can support the sense of greater alignment and flow in one's life, and greater sense of connectedness to nature and to one's own innate nature. So I see all these people waving, and I just want to say hi everybody. I also am really excited to be sharing with some upcoming people who've been in the program and other teachers that are going to be sharing weekly with me this summer about the aspects of things they will be sharing when they're part of the program of yoga and healing sciences, or the things that have touched them most on their own yogic paths of working with breath work, working with the asanas, working with the mind and the principles that help us feel most attuned in life. So anybody who wants to find out more about them, keep watching these videos, because there'll be lots of nuggets of rich information being shared when we dialogue and when we have conversation about the topics coming. Meanwhile, I just want to say that even in all the years of practicing yoga, there have been times, I will say, that I thought, am I into this? Is this really working for me as a path or a way of the lens to see through? And as I expanded and ventured into other mystical traditions at times, and I recognized that there was always a thread of something that I was still looking for, that was the thread of yoga. And that in ancient traditions of many kinds, that there's crossover and there's affiliation and there's awareness of certain universal concepts and principles that one will see that you can find in yoga and that you might see in ancient Egyptian, or you might experience when you go deeper into other cultural traditions. I remember being in Egypt and seeing asanas, what looked like asanas in the hieroglyphs, and thought, wow, a lot of what's going on globally really has been a lot of crossover and between traditions over time. And it truly has been. So if we're tapping in from one tradition and one angle, we can use it as a doorway to open and shift perspective and hopefully be just as curious about many of the other doorways. Maybe it forms a bridge and a language that we can use to best keep exploring all these other practices and philosophies too, if they suit us. And again, maybe that's okay, and that's part of our unique yoga and the yoga journey that is about one's own relationship to their deepest nature and the deepest and truest nature that they experience outside and inside, both at the same. So this is just a moment of tapping out there and saying hello and wanting to share a little bit more about this journey. And very excited about this fall. Every fall is just such a deep dive, a rich dive into being able to share with old friends, new friends, and so much more about how all the elements, 5 elements, how the koshas, how the sutras, how the Bhagavad Gita, sacred texts, how working with sacred sound can completely enliven, shift our neurology, help us see through the veils of things that maybe we were stuck in perceiving a certain way, and then realize, oh wow, there's another way to bridge things that might be challenging or might have just seemed limiting in some way. So join me more later this week, please, with some of the talks and in the coming weeks. And I just say my hellos to everybody, wishing you all a great day. And thank you for checking in and listening to this video and saying hi. Hi, waves out there. I see you. Okay. Bye, everybody.